YouTube. We should be live on Instagram.
I'm
Good
on.
morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're watching from. Give us a hi in the chat if you're on YouTube, if you're on Instagram. And I want to kick things straight off in today's track help session with a pleasant welcome to a number of members who've joined us in the past couple of weeks. Before I do that, I'm just going to admit William in. What's up, William? Welcome to Track Help. Hope you can hear us. If you got a mic, just unmute yourself. Now, in the past week, guys, we've had Oscar from Germany join us. We've had Nikita from Spain, Andrew from Indonesia, Felipe from Brazil, and many, many more. The point is, karting season is well and truly getting started. I want to hand it over to some of our new members today, as we're going to head over to our submissions. We've got Fabio from Portugal, we've got Johnny from Spain, William from the States, Brandon from South Africa, and hopefully Kareem from Dubai is going to be joining us. Fabio, what's the weather like in Portugal?
Currently, not so good. It's raining.
I got to ask you, Fabio, are you a former soccer player?
No, this picture is not mine. But
Okay.
I play soccer as well.
I was going to say maybe you took on a new hobby after soccer. And how about for you, Johnny, in Spain? It must be good weather, no?
It's been a terrible week for the weather. It's been really, really wet, but finally we had some dry conditions today, fortunately.
Okay, excellent. How about in South Africa for Brandon?
Oh yeah, weather's great. 23 degrees and always sunny.
Superb. William, can you hear us? You got a mic?
I do, yeah.
Excellent. Welcome, William. How are you? Nice to see you.
Nice to be here.
Is it your first time joining Track Help?
Yes, first time.
Amazing. Just to run you through, William, we've got a number of submissions over here today, which we're going to work through across the course of the hour. We're going to get started with Fabio. We're going to move on to Johnny. We're going to then go to your footage from K1 Speedway, and then we're going to round it off with Brandon and hopefully Kareem. Just sit in tight whilst we get started with Fabio. If you have any questions in between, be sure to ask as well. And it's a pleasure to have you here.
Perfect, thank you.
Fabio, I'm just going to bring up your footage over here now. How did you come across the KTips channel?
Basically on YouTube. Saw
Yep.
a few videos on YouTube, and then found out that you have this group, and I joined the group basically.
Amazing. Did you download the ebook and then join the academy, or you just
No, I
joined
joined the
directly?
academy first, and then I downloaded the ebook.
Okay, awesome. That's excellent. Well, it's always great to know how you guys join the academy. The point of the group is to have discussions like this every week, get a chance for you guys to share your footage, ask some questions. I'm struggling to load what's in the background. Just give it a moment, it should come up. But whilst we wait for it to load up, just talk us through this track. Is it your home track?
Not necessarily my home track, but this is pretty near to my home currently.
Nice.
I went to karting like 3 years ago. Then I got my first born basically, and I give up for like 2 years. And this year
Okay.
I start again because my brother said you need to come back, you need to restart. So
Yep.
I joined this championship that is hosted in this track. So once a month we go there, we do 2 sessions of 5 plus 5 minutes of qualifying plus 15 minutes of race.
Super.
And I've been doing it since the beginning of the year basically.
So you're obviously very experienced. The track that you're driving at is an outdoor track, and
Yeah.
honestly, it gives me some vibes of Brazil for some reason, like the Brazil F1 track. Before we actually go on to footage, I want to understand which layout you're currently driving and
Okay.
preparing for, because there's a number of configurations. I believe this is the start-finish line, so you go in this direction.
Yes, so the finish line is right up the end of your arrow, so right there, yeah. Then you have this right corner, again right.
Sorry, just a moment. Into the right.
Into the right again.
Excellent.
Then into the left, but the last left, not there. After
Okay.
you go, you still go.
Awesome.
And then, yeah.
So it's a long left over here.
Yeah, and I really struggle with that one.
Okay.
And then you have these two hairpins. So the first one to the left, and then
Interesting.
one to the right. Like this kind of chicane that is not a chicane at all, but you have, and then you have this long right corner that I also think I can improve a lot here.
Awesome, awesome. And we basically round off the lap through this
Yeah.
high-speed bit all the way back
Yeah.
to the
All the way
sunlight.
full throttle.
It's always good to break the lap down into three portions.
Sections.
I like to call it 3 sectors. It looks like, by what you've just told me over here, it's generally sector 2 and maybe a bit of sector 3 you want to get some guidance on.
Yes, but I would also like, so sector 3, the beginning at least, the second part, I think I am pretty okay
Yep.
with it. But at the same time, I have a different approach on the first corner. When I'm comparing to the majority of the guys on the track, I have a different approach, and I would like also to talk a bit
Perfect.
about it, if it's the best approach or not.
What we'll do, let's go through the first corner. Let's
Mhm.
then cover a couple of bits about sector 2, the hairpins, and we'll touch on a couple of corners as well on the way. Actually, the best way to go through this all is to start on a fresh lap. With this footage that you uploaded, was this recent? Recorded like...
It was in January.
Okay, so not bad. I mean, the weather's a lot better than you described to me. So
Yeah.
at least-
Right. At that day, it was a really nice weather, not the best temperature, but it was sunny.
any idea where your best lap was during this session?
No, right
Bit-
now, no
Or
idea.
middle of the video, maybe towards the end?
Probably it was like the third try I did.
Yep.
Well,
Well,
it's always around the third try that I get the best lap time.
let's head over to a clean lap. I believe we are coming towards the final corner.
Yeah.
Just to
So-
understand now, you're driving Sodi Karts. Sodi Karts are some of the most powerful rental karts, and they're quite enjoyable to negotiate. Now, the main thing with karts with outdoor is you can experiment between trail braking and threshold braking, especially in these karts. I've had some feedback from drivers where they prefer to trail brake into some of these corners. Other drivers, they like to go for the early brake, threshold brake, that is. In terms of your technique, what have you found is the sweet spot for you?
So in the first corner, I go really early on the brakes. I
Mhm.
tend to lock a little bit to turn with the brakes, and that generally people don't do this. And I tend to not eat this green part because I feel like when I eat this green part, the grip is more than in the asphalt part, and the car doesn't settle good, so it jumps a lot.
Yeah.
So I at least for me, and
Hello.
comparing with the comparing
What-
with the guys that I am currently fighting when I am on the track, so the middle of the pack, I've always win time on this. So I break some. You have basically a point or a place where the asphalt is broken. So that
Mhm.
is my breaking point.
Nice.
I get just a little bit of rotation. I try to hit the apex somewhere around there. Yeah. And
Excellent.
I try not to hit the green. So I go to the stripes, but I don't hit the green. I try not to hit the green at all.
Yeah. You feel maybe it hooks the tire too much or it unsettles the car when you take those excess.
Yeah. When I get that part, if it's dry, if it's wet, it's end of the game. But if it's
Yeah.
dry, you have a lot of grip there, and the cart, and actually when I'm outside seeing other guys doing it, the cart literally jumps if you go with too much speed. Probably if you go with the right speed, it's okay, but if you go with too much speed, the cart starts to jump. And for me, I really don't like the feel.
And I think this is an interesting freeze frame because you can understand the tightness of the corner. So you wouldn't say you can lift, yeah, and get away with that in this corner. You have to put a bit of brakes.
Yeah, because basically here you are at top speed, something
Yep.
around 85, 87 kilometers per hour.
Absolutely.
So here you need to brake, and you
From-
need to,
Sorry, from what I can tell, I think you're doing a great initial attempt at this. I like how you're sacrificing just a bit of time on the entry to get some rotation, but more importantly, keeping those revs high. I don't see you bogging down at all. What you could try now is finding that balance. How quickly can I go from brakes back onto gas and play with the limits? So, of course, if we go too quickly from brake to gas, we might end up going wide on the exit. What about the inside curb? Is this something you can at all, go over, or do you just avoid and go into
I
the white
avoid it,
next?
but some guys they go over it. I avoid it. I just touch
Okay.
it lightly. So I will say like the best I can do this corner. I will like put half a tire over it, but not more than that.
Gotcha,
Hey,
gotcha.
Omar, can I just say
Hi,
something
Kareem.
about
Welcome.
actually? Yeah, hi. Can I just say something about actually using the inside curve for the rotation? I think those ribbed curbs, they're actually really bad for rotation because they kind of lock the car into that line, But
Mhm.
something more of like a sausage curb, it just
Yeah.
makes it car jump over and just gives you all that rotation.
I think that's a very good observation, a great point. The type of curb will impact the type of reaction it gives to your car. And
Yeah, and also another question I asked here for Fabio. Do you kind of just want your car like on the curb but neither tire is touching it, or do you want to be more on the curb rather than like between it?
So I try not to be between it. I just touch it slightly with the inside tires, basically.
I think a good example is the upcoming left, right? About touching the curb. So if we watch over
That
here,
one you can touch it because it's not so high. It's a really
Yep.
low profile one, and you can touch it and you can go literally over it.
yep,
It's completely different from the other one. The other one is the height is a lot more higher than this one. And if you touch it, the my feeling at least is that the car. I am a big guy. I have 1.9 meters, so I feel like the car really unsettles the car a lot.
I think that's a good point. I just want to move on to sector 2 because you mentioned for this left-hander there was some time you could maybe try to gain. Is this flat though, by the looks of it?
So I don't do it flat. So you you might not see it on the recording, but on the
Mhm.
right side you have like there's illumination, there, and you have the tires. So that is around there. That is my braking point.
Okay, so
But
there's actually a tap of the brakes.
yeah, I do a slap like a 75% braking, just a second probably. It's just like
Yep.
a slap, and then I try to hit the apex at the start. I didn't made it here.
Okay.
And I also try to go a little bit more over
Mhm.
the stripes, but
Yeah.
I feel like you probably I will not say flat out, so 100% on the turtle, but probably you can do it without braking and simply lift up a little bit on the car and doing it without braking. But I never
Awesome.
did it. Always when I try it, I tend to open it too much, and sometimes I go into the green part in the end of the corner.
I think this is one of the corners where you could try a technique which I like on these medium speed corners. It's introducing a lift and a sharp turn to almost replace the brake. When you lift and you sharp turn, you then have to put a bit more lean onto it. So we're putting more of our body weight to the outside. But crucially, if you can lift and almost turn at the same time, it scrubs speed off. Combine that with the leaning, which gives us a bit more grip on the outsides. Then we can start feeding the gas back again. So it's going to be a moment where it's turn, no gas. So you're
Okay.
almost coasting in that period. And of course, that's going to be on the corner entry. So if you're able to turn just aggressive enough, scrub some speed, it'll give you some rotation as well. And then you'll feel that, hold on, I could get back onto the accelerator again. And what you can do with this technique is essentially replace a slight brake by a lift and a sharp turn. Have you attempted that before? Have you tried that at this corner?
On this corner, not, but I try it on the last corner. So
Okay,
we'll
we're gonna.
talk about it also, but I try it there. Not sure if it was successfully in the end or
Yeah.
not, but I was able to do it on the last corner without because not the last corner, but the last corner is full of the throttle. The other corner behind that one I tend to also to lift or to
Mhm.
take a little bit on the brakes. But sometimes what I did is like lifting,
Yeah.
pushing, using my body weight to turn the car. So pushing the car, so turning and also pushing out my weight to the outside to
Nice.
make the car rotating, and then I go hit the throttle again.
Yeah.
But in the end, in the end, the final. So I don't have sectors. I don't have time lapse or the time per sector. So in the end, the final lap time wasn't great, but maybe
Mhm.
on that specific sector it was good.
Omar,
Of
I
course.
have a question about actually
Go ahead.
using your body weight to turn the cart.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these carts now you can adjust the pedals and also your seat position. So
Mhm.
something I saw online is that if you're counting like a little bit of understeer, you can
Yeah.
move your seat forward to put more of your weight on the front wheel, on the front tires, and if you're having oversteer, you move your seat back while you're on the track. So that's something
Yeah.
you can use.
Absolutely. And that's the first thing we do. For example, if we have an understeer car which you just feel doesn't turn, we recommend, if you can, if your height allows it, put your seat forward. I think for Fabio, you're about 190, so you're gonna be
Yeah,
your knees
I need to
touching
be
the
all push. Yeah, always push to the back. Basically, I don't have
Yeah,
that
that was
that
my
that
yeah,
option.
unfortunately, you're gonna have to suffer with understeer like that. But you can then use the sharp turning technique, a bit more leaning, just to get more grip on those front tires, because that's what we're trying to do with understeer. Less grip on the front tires. So how can we now manually put some load there? As Karim mentioned, you can shift your seat back and forth. If there's oversteer, too much oversteer in the car, put it slightly back. One thing I do want to touch on is your braking technique for this hairpin. This is a nice corner because, again, we've built up a lot of speed on entry. What's your current reference for braking? Is it on the right hand
So
side somewhere?
is there you have that entry for water on the
Yep.
right side. So that is after that I start to brake.
Okay.
Basically, so somewhere around here I start
And
to
I've
brake.
noticed that you've got a nice shot over here. You're basically holding the brakes now, holding the brakes,
Yeah, I'm
and then just
holding
releasing
it.
before the apex. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I want you to try, and I don't know if you've done this before, is slightly a more aggressive approach. So
Okay.
once you've established a comfortable braking point, okay, I'm safe, I'm not locking up at this point. Let's try to apply a bit more pressure and try to spend a bit less time on the brakes. So right now we're on the brakes, then we're carrying it slightly into the corner, closer to the apex, then we're releasing. So try out the hard braking technique where there's initial pressure would look something like this. So we're high on that pressure. We're going to wait for that biting point or that rotation point. You'll feel the rear end step out, right? And that's where you want to start counter steering. So essentially what I'm looking for over here is a slight bit more of counter steer. That's how you'll know you're braking harder. And then
Yeah, can I say that actually does really work because that corner
Yeah.
has a really similar profile to turn 13 at Kart Zone. I think
a
you know
hairpin,
what?
right?
Yeah, right
Instead
after
it's
the
a right
straight.
hairpin, basically.
Yeah, it's a
Or the
really
downhill
similar
left.
corner profile to that.
I think the
So
downhill left, yeah, you're talking
yeah,
about.
so something I actually
Exactly.
picked up from watching Alonso's on board from when he drove the track is really hard brake, and before you even start turning into the corner, you're just back on the throttle and you're using that oversteer to turn you in. And then you
Absolutely.
just clip that sausage curb on the inside that gives you the rest of your rotation.
That is another question that I would like to ask. So
Yeah.
some guys
Go
they
ahead.
clip the inside, so the curve on the inside.
Mm.
Generally, I don't do it, but I already saw some guys clipping it. So I'm not sure if it's so. I sometimes I do it, but I do it on the first lap, and I do it to try to to find space, basically, not to be faster. But is good for you to get a little bit more rotation or not?
Yeah. You see, with curbs, at the end of the day, it's about the angle that you take it at. And then also you've got to understand what impact it's having on your cart. So maybe when you take it, do you find that the cart is slowing down? Do you feel like you're getting a boost? And it's all about your approach. So some drivers, they have this technique where, they'll use all of the curbs on the track. But that's just, their way of manipulating the kart on entry to have that perfect positioning to take that curb. The moment you take it slightly wrong, you'll unfortunately face the consequence of either bogging down, losing the revs. So it's trial and error. What I would say though, if you can work on getting your braking done a lot earlier, basically start getting on the gas earlier, then all you have to worry about now is putting more and more gas and then essentially finding the right angle to take this curb or jump the curb. So what we do is get our braking done at the entry phase of the corner. As I said, nice and hard, good amount of pressure. And as soon as we come off the brakes, now we're focusing on smooth acceleration, straightening out the steering wheel, similar to what you're doing over here. And then it's all about, where do I want to hit the curb? The main thing with the curb is you don't want to hit it too early. So you don't want to hit it somewhere here. Essentially, the earlier you hit it, the wider you're going to be on exit. Currently,
Yeah, I
mean,
think actually here I'd like to take your opinion on this, but he's actually apexing a bit too early, which means he's kind of turning in too early and also braking in too early, because I think he even noticed that you still have a lot of curb left, and kind of the trajectory you have onto the exit of the corner, it's more straight on rather than continuing down the road, which is actually something I really found, because before the endurance race, we did track walks, and where I would kind of find where I need to apex is that I just stand on the inside of the corner, face straight, and see where do I need to be facing where I want to be exiting. And that's a technique that helped me a lot, just even in the track walks. So
that's handy.
I think you would actually be apexing more towards the end of that dead grass there.
So
Yeah,
basically,
I think on this lap in isolation, because it's not, we don't know if it's his best lap. Maybe you've gone in slightly early, but generally for a hairpin like this, which is followed by a relative straight, try to go for a slightly later turn in just to get a better exit. Shall we move on to the last part of the lap? Because we need to wrap up. And the last part of the lap is a lot more flowing. I think this is all about placement of the kart. It's about taking the least meters possible when you can, of course. What's one of the corners which you wanted to cover over here? Was it this right-hand turn, right? Yeah, I was just going to say.
For me, this one is like, I am not doing it right, for sure. I will use as that all there is my reference points.
Okay.
So that is where I should always, I should keep, so you have like this line that is broken on the track over there. So I should keep the kart on the left side of the line and move after that hole on the line. Basically, you have the line there. That should be a little bit more to the left. So right there. And then you will see a hole somewhere on that line, near to the end of it, more to the front.
Yeah,
there
you go.
That hole there. So I should move the car after that hole. That for me, and I was turning before that hole in this try.
I think a good way to look at corners like this is the overhead shot, and I believe it's this left-hand turn we're looking at.
Yeah.
The main thing the overhead shot gives us is context and how wide or how tight a certain corner is. So, for example, you can see the hairpin is very tight. This corner is obviously a lot wider than the hairpin, but when it comes to actually driving, what you'll find is you're building up speed all the way here, and then suddenly it becomes tight on you, right? And this is where you do a bit of braking, and then you're aiming for an apex at the inside. It's good to note that the curbs basically start from quite early on over here. So we sort of want to avoid those. And the way you avoid hitting this curb too early is you just delay your turn-in. So basically, we can afford to, as you have a reference of a line on the track over here on the outside, follow that line on the left-hand side, and then sort of cut back across the track. So then we can hit a later apex somewhere where my tick is, because what we're trying to do is get best exit to finish our lap. So main thing with this corner, don't turn too early. I think that's the first.
So what you're trying to explain here is just use the width of the track to your advantage. Because I can see in his onboard he's not using as much of the track as he could have.
It's an interesting point. I know the camera is more pointing to the right-hand side, so we don't have a good shot over here. From your experience, have you noticed, Fabio, drivers going on the outside curb on entry? Do people
No,
put two wheels
I
over
never
here?
saw no one touching it, but they basically the tire is touching the white line of the curve, but not the curve at all.
Yeah, gotcha. And what about this hole in the track? Is that quite
So
significant?
that is the hole. So
Or
for
it's
me, it's
not too bad?
the perfect entry point. But some guys are entering a little bit further. So basically, almost on the end of that line. So
Yeah.
when the line is ending.
Gotcha. How much braking are you doing here, percentage-wise? Is it a long
So
brake, short brake?
technically, sometimes I don't do brake at all. I just lift up as you can see, I lift
Yeah,
up
yeah.
the throttle and I just allow it to go a little bit without accelerating, and then introducing slowly the acceleration and go after full throttle. But like
I
I
think
said, I see my perception here is like I'm losing top speed on the rest of
yeah.
the track until the end, because basically I go full throttle until the next breaking point, that is after the finish line.
One thing I can advise you could try to do is go for that short lift and
Mhm.
then immediately back on the gas. So if we just watch your foot over here, I'm going to try on this lap in isolation, for example, lift. So in relation to the corner,
Mhm.
watch the right foot, lift, lift, lift,
And
and
I'm
then gas.
introducing throttle.
Yeah, at the apex. So what we want to do is just try and shorten that period. So we lift, and then feel free a moment or two later, even about now, start feeding some gas, whether it's 25%,
Okay.
40%. And it's okay if you get a little bit of oversteer, as long as you're not doing 90 degrees oversteer, you should be.
Okay.
The point is, we can afford to be a bit more aggressive over here. And I feel that the more top speed you build, the quicker you're going to reach this curb. And this will actually give you some grip. It'll give you some support. So you're not going to slide out completely or oversteer too much. I think for this last corner, the line is decent. What I would think of is you could even go for an early lift, but more importantly, early gas, and then build
Okay.
that gas up so we can carry it to the final part. One more thing just to recap before we move on to the next driver then. I like how you're doing the first corner. First corner is a quite sensible approach. What you can try to do over here is, as I said, shorten the time from releasing the brakes to getting back on the gas, just being a bit more aggressive. That leads us on to the fast right, which is coming up, or not the fast right, the fast left, where we want to try to apply the sharp turn and lift technique. So instead of braking over here, let's go for a lift, sharp turn. Use a bit more of your body weight over here so you can lean out.
Okay.
Again, just being a bit more aggressive with the car. Coming into the hairpin, again, a bit more aggressive. What are we aggressive this time with? Our braking. So maybe you could go a bit later, perhaps a bit deeper into the corner as well. Idea is to get our braking done early over here with a high amount of pressure, and then start feeding the gas a bit earlier. Ideally going for a slightly later apex, so it sets you up for the next turn. And then just to wrap up the lap, what you can try to do is go for an earlier gas. So we're lifting, that's fine. But now that time that we get back onto the accelerator, let's start feeding it 20%, 40%, 70%, just slightly earlier. The curb will be there to catch you. When are you going to the track next?
So on May, because on April we are off. So no the championship on April, they are basically skipping April. So May I will be back there on the championship, but maybe I will go there for a little practice before that.
So I think these are 3 easy improvements that you can try to put next time you go to the track. Now, what I don't advise you to do is do everything in one go. It could be confusing, but just try and stage it session by session, add a new thing in. So first session, you work on that braking in the hairpin. Second one, you work on the last sector, and just see if these improvements are making a difference or not. Please come back to track help and let me know if it made a difference. Then we can hopefully work on some more things that you can go for. We're going to have to move on to the next driver, Fabio. And I'm going to go straight.
Omar,
go for it, Kareem.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you, if you wanted to touch on like different curb types and stuff, I have really good footage from my endurance race about what curbs I used, what curbs I didn't, and kind of why, because you can see it in the footage. So if you wanted to touch on that, you can definitely use my footage.
I'm really happy that you've managed to clip your footage as well this time. As I mentioned,
Yeah, I
we're
just
gonna
clip the fastest laps rather than like hour-long videos. because-
absolutely, and that's the important stuff, because then we want to try and work on how to improve the fastest lap. As I mentioned, we're limited for time today, but we're gonna hopefully go through the next bits of footage. If we have enough time, we're gonna come to your footage, inshallah. All right.
Great, inshallah.
We're gonna go ahead to Johnny now, and Johnny, you're preparing for. Is it your first sprint race?
Yeah, first sprint race. Yeah. So I've been
How are you
karting.
feeling?
I feel okay, but I've never been in like a competitive situation apart from with friends. So
Yep.
I think it'll be interesting to race against like actual competitive guys.
Yeah, Johnny, a piece of advice for sprint races: first lap, just keep it clean. Let the people in front of you fight it out. You're gonna see the opportunity because when people are running in front of you, they're gonna make mistakes. It just gives you a door to go right past. Like don't try and be too aggressive on that first lap. Get a good start, but if you see too many people in front of you, don't try to be the fourth guy trying to go four wide into a corner. Just stay behind the three in front of you. They're gonna make a mistake. You're just gonna find that door open right for you, and you're gonna get past that open.
Yeah.
I think that's some good advice Kareem's giving you, because what happens is we're flipping our mindset from fastest lap now to racecraft. So overtaking, defending, reacting to people, being aggressive, people making mistakes. And yes, pace is necessary. You need to have a good understanding of the line if you want to finish high up. But then just capitalizing on other people's mistakes, staying consistent yourself is actually the recipe for victories in races. How long have you been karting for, Johnny?
So consistently, maybe not very long, like November, December last year.
Okay, excellent. So you basically picked up the buzz for it now and you're getting addicted.
Yeah, you could say that, yeah.
Excellent. So the track we're watching here is just of your local one, I guess, right? Where you...
It's very close to, yeah, it's not too far from where I live.
Yep.
I did record footage at the track where I'm racing, but it's my first time, like first couple of times recording with a camera on my helmet, so getting the angle right was a bit tricky. And the so the first time, like I got the video, but the angle was wrong. The second time I got the angle right, but the camera was in photo mode, so it was taking photos, unfortunately.
Johnny, what camera do you have?
It's like a high speed, like 20. It's like a GoPro, but it's not quite a GoPro. It's like a cheaper GoPro.
Does it have like an app on your phone or something where you can get like a live feed for it?
I think it does. Yeah, it does.
If you want to get the angle right, just use that while you're sitting in the cart. You have the feed on your phone. You can just adjust it. If that doesn't work, just try to adjust it bit by bit and take photos before you go out, so you know if your angle is right or not.
Yeah.
And then look back at it, see if you need to tilt it up or down, and just adjust it like that.
Yeah.
That's the best way. Otherwise, you have to have a friend there to, adjust the angle or get a marshal to help you. Which, they if you don't ask, they won't help. So just go for that. It's worth that footage. Basically, this is Ariza. Is it Ariza racing?
Yeah, Ariza. Yeah.
First impressions, it looks quite simple. Now, of course, that's easier said than done. I'm sure when you go there, it's going to take you a few goes to get up to grips with it. Main thing we want to do, similar to how we did with Fabio, let's split the track up. We essentially have a long straight, which a lot of your overtaking will be done probably into the first corner. It's a tight left for the first turn. Don't get deceived by the first corner because it becomes even tighter for turn 2. And this is an awkward right-left sequence, which basically leads us onto the middle part of the track. You then got some technical turns. So again, a 90-degree left-hander, it looks like, into a sharp hairpin. And then you basically come up towards the end of sector 2, which is a bit more straightforward, going into sector 3. It's a double right, lots of curb there on the inside, a flat-out section into a sharp right, another sharp right, and then you basically end the lap. So by looking at this, sector 3 looks the most simple. Sector 1 and 2, you're probably going to have to, find the ideal line. And that's why I want to bring you on to some footage, which I found online. It looks like there's a lot of competitive guys who actually go to this track. So we're going to spectate Marcus's footage, and this is on YouTube. So if you just search for Ariza Karting, you'll be able to see lots of videos. I believe these guys do the league. Are you doing the preparation where they're going to put ballast weights and everything's going to be fair like that, or is it just a race with friends?
I think you can go with ballast, but I think my weight is just above the minimum, so I don't think I'll need it.
Perfect.
Yep.
That's the best weight to be, because we found that, and I've done many experiments, ballast weight, it can, depending on the type that you have, whether it's ballast weight in a holder or ballast weight you wear, it has different implications on your driving. So it's best not to add any. You're on the safe side. And I just focus on your driving now. It's a very, very quick lap. It looks like this was at 85 kilos, albeit still 44.2 seconds. And let's basically slow the lap down and bring up our pen so we can just go through the first couple of sectors real quick. Now,
they've resurfaced part of that since this video, it seems. So it's now.
You've obviously driven, yeah? You've driven there recently.
Yeah, about it was last week, yeah.
Super. Main thing I like to observe, especially when you have access to footage of regular drivers like this guys, or even if you're on track with them, what kinds of track limits are they using? How is track limits defined here? The reason that's so important is because if you're taking a line, let's say, within the track limits, staying within this curve, the angle of the corner becomes a lot tighter for you, right? You can use track limits to your advantage. For example, how they're doing over here, using a lot of the outside part of the track, which essentially makes the first turn wider. That is something you'll have to confirm on the day during the briefing, because when it's a sprint race, they usually have strict rules. They might even penalize you for going on the curbs too much. Just check with them beforehand. Essentially, what the Marcus is trying to do for this first corner is making the track as wide as possible. He's got his teammate or competitor in front. It's interesting how they're utilizing the body position. This is one of those corners you really want to lean at. So flick it from the right, come inside. Just let's take a look at how much curb they're actually using over here. I'd say a moderate amount, halfway. In your experience, how were the curbs from that last practice run you did? The insides of the corners?
They're similar to in here, but they're like cleaned up a bit, but you can come out of them pretty fast.
Specifically, before we go ahead, which corners were you doing well at, and which corners do you feel that you still need to improve on? I'll bring my track map up over here.
So turn one, I actually went off at the end of one of the sessions. Into the wall.
At least you're pushing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was okay, but yeah. So turn one was. Then turn two, I think, is important to get right, so you can come fast going into the second sector.
Yep.
Turn 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, this turn here, you can come pretty fast, but like it's a really short stretch, so you have to get the brake in right if you want to go into the S like correctly.
Cool.
And then I think here you can lift a little bit and then come out wide, and then you're into the fast sector.
Excellent.
That was my observation.
Turn one, is there any lifting or braking you're doing for it? Let me just bring up the footage.
So when I did it, I lifted just before the curb, I think. Lifted just before the curb.
Okay.
Went fairly long up to the end of the curb and then turned.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And how was that approach for you? Did you feel that your momentum was good, or did you feel people were catching you on the exit of the corner? How was that line?
There weren't many of us on track at the time. There was only like 2 or 3 of us. So it was difficult to say. But actually, it carried like quite a lot of momentum through into the next part before turn 2. But then you have to kind of brake hard, I think, to go into turn 2 to be able to make it correctly.
It felt decent. I'm just trying to compare what we're watching over here from Marcos. He goes for a slightly earlier turn-in, probably an early lift as well. And what he's trying to target is a lot of curb on the inside. So you can see he gets a bit of understeer over here, so he doesn't get as much curb. But the main thing is, closer you are to the inside, the better you've basically done this corner. The moment you start leaving a gap half a kart, 1 kart's width, then we're in trouble. We're losing time. So we got to tighten it up. Look ahead to the exit point as we prepare for turn 2. I guess this is where your first braking point is. And is it an early brake or is it a lift?
I think I was braking just a little bit further back, maybe about where the red tires end. I think I was braking about there.
Okay. Just
And
1 second.
then-
The red tires are basically just over here. So nice. You got a clear reference there. How about these track limits? Were you going over like these guys are doing, or were you staying within the curve?
In the later laps of the session, yes. Towards the beginning of the session, I wasn't pushing the limits too much. Yeah,
it's unorthodox, this, and you know, if we posted this video on Instagram, people are like track limits, but check with your race directors. Certainly, if you take this line, it's going to be beneficial for you, because look at the radius now; it's so much wider than taking
can
it
I actually
over here.
add something about those track limits? Because you know, at Kartdrome, especially at that last corner, you really want to like just get all the way like as far away as possible onto the runoff and just violate those track limits, because it's so much faster. It makes your exit a lot better, because it makes the car, you're not turning as much, so less like speed is lost due to friction of the tires just turning. So it really helps you out all the way through the straight. But in races, especially sprint races, endurance races, Ironmans, all those stuff, they're like, no, you gotta stick within track limits.
Yeah, and they might even
what
put
we
some
always
tires
do
here, right?
is keep those 2 tires on that white line. Like, you know how Kartdrome on that last corner is kind of like a double curb next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we keep the car like you're sitting on that first curb, so one tire is on the so one side is on the runoff and one side is on the track, so you're not losing that time to that curb. And that looks like a really aggressive curb, actually. That would make you lose a lot of time.
Yeah, it's interesting how Marcus is choosing to go on the outer part. He's actually braking, I would say, just about towards the end where the blue part fades. It's a relatively hard brake, and essentially he's getting back on the gas before the apex. That's the key over here. So what you can do, if you're able to use a bit more of the track limits, you can afford to then go for a slightly deeper entry, so you can use more of the curb, and then all the way wide. That's where you get your braking done, slightly late as well. Start feeding the gas once again. Inside curb over here, again, use a bit of it, play around with it. I don't.
It has a bit of elevation. That one and the next one, they have a little bit, not to the point where you can't use them, but they have like they're rumble curbs and they have a bit of elevation. But
interesting.
I use them.
Yeah, and this is his fastest lap. So if we watch his technique on the exit, where he's 100% on the gas, now it's about the angle of this corner. So once again, drive in front, utilizing that body position, the leaning. Are you leaning at all in these corners?
I should probably do it a bit more. Actually, from watching your videos, like when I did a couple of wet sessions, I used the leaning to help the kart turn, but I haven't done it so much in the dry.
I think especially in this kind of corner where you're flat out and you're trying to angle the corner to boost over the curb. If we watch how much of the curb he uses, pretty much all of it. What he's getting over here is almost that straight line effect. So keeping the steering wheel neutral, you can see there's barely any movement on the steering wheel, but it gives him that jump. Crucially, boosts you onto the end. Kareem, if you just mute yourself, you're not muted. Just give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Just make sure you're muted, guys. Yeah, when you're on. Flat out, I assume, through the fast left?
Yeah, so there's like a little curb on the right that you can kind of use here to kind of launch yourself into it. So I brought myself out and went across it like that.
I think this is very, very important that you do. Again, we're maximizing the radius of this corner. Moment we start going a bit too tight, we're probably going to have to end up turning more, maybe lifting a bit. So widen up as much as possible. And again, utilize your body weight over here, lean out as you keep your foot pinned to the floor. Interesting how Marcos, again, is going for that full curb usage. So it boosts him onto the all-important hairpin. How's this corner for you so far? Like, what's your approach?
Well, I think it's one of the most difficult ones because I couldn't quite figure out the best breaking point to make that turn. So
let's see what Marcus does. It looks like Marcus is right on the limit, albeit he's gaining slightly to his friend in front. I'm not sure if the driver in front had a compromised line. It looks like he's slightly compromised. That's why he gains a lot. But what Marcus is doing over here is aggressive, carrying all that entry speed. Let's watch his left foot. Boom. He's on the brakes. He's not as late on the brakes as I expect, but if we use the outside curb as a reference, let's say it's about just after halfway down that curb. It's a hard brake because watch his steering wheel. It's a sharp turn in, but then he gets that neutral steer back. So what he's doing is hard on the brakes. And more than the brake pressure over here, the brake pressure to an extent, but I'd say getting back on the gas. So he gets his braking done early. And it's actually that motion when he starts feeding the gas that helps him get back to a neutral position. He's not going for a late turn, and that's important. He's going relatively early so he can use all of that curb again. And over here, you can see how much curb he uses, collects a bit of dust on the inside. Whether that gives him, an advantage or not, I'm not sure. From your point of view, I'd try to target the curb usage over here. Start with using it halfway. I mean, what are you currently doing? Are you using a lot of the curb?
Yeah, I was going over that curb when I was taking it.
Yeah, try and get the angle right, similar to what Marcus is trying to do, getting that jump effect. And essentially, this exit is a reverse of turn 2. Basically, in turn 2, we're going from a tight right hairpin into this fast left or flat out left, as you can see over here. And what we're going to do for the upcoming hairpin, it's a tight left now, which then goes into a fast right. And watch how Marcus, once again, is flat out. Utilize that body position, lean out, keep your foot pinned to the floor as you ride over the curb over here. Then what we're going to do is prepare for the final part of the track. How's the final part of the track? Looks all high speed.
It is pretty high speed, yeah. I think once you kind of figure out because I couldn't figure out whether to try and go down the middle and come out wide or try and do it like a double right.
Yeah.
Going into the next section.
Very, very good point. So you mean over here, the double right.
Yeah.
Now that's always an important line to think about because it's such a long curb. If we look at the overhead shot, you can see curb starts all the way here. That's your early apex, that's your mid, and that's your late. I believe what Marcus is trying to do, he's trying to stay wide. A bit of a lift. Were you doing a bit of a lift for this corner?
Yes, I was lifting around the middle, so I would start to turn, then lift, and then accelerate again.
Interesting.
In the late.
So let's say it's a lift for now. Regardless of that, Marcus is trying to skip that early apex, skip even the middle, but then he gets tight towards the exit where he's going for one late apex, which is going to be where my X is. So basically, this should theoretically give him the best exit onto this straight. And just to observe how he did it, just going to watch his right foot over here. I'm not sure if I see a slight lift or not, whether it's a lift or not. It's relatively early. You can see actually a good way to gauge this is when does he actually touch the curb, right? So one more time. He's not touching the curb. It's far from the curb. Now he's actually getting closer. So towards the middle part of the corner, he's not touching the curb as per se, but he's getting close to the white line. But then towards the end of the corner, now he's picking up some curb. And to be fair, it's not as much as, for example, the hairpin where he was almost collecting some dust. It's about halfway, kissing that inside late apex, and then utilizing the track on exit. You can see you've got the slipstream now. This is all the high-speed stuff. If you can get this final couple of corners right, your chances to overtake coming into The first turn after this will be relatively high. Just one more thing: are these these last right-handers all flat out?
Yeah, Omar, I have a question. Isn't that much later apex just allowing him to get on the throttle a lot earlier, and he
True.
doesn't have to deal with as much like oversteer or understeer going into the corner? It just makes the exit a lot better because you can see how much he closes up there.
Yeah, that's the nature of going for one late apex. You can get on that accelerator earlier. You could also get your turn-in done later, so on entry you can attack the corner a bit more. Johnny, are these two right-handers flat out, which are coming up the last two corners?
I think you can do them flat out. I lifted ever so slightly just to make sure that I didn't go like too wide.
Yep.
And then I would, on both of them, just accelerate.
Awesome. Overall, the main
Just-
thing I want you to try to aim for is a consistent line. So when it comes to the race, you don't want to change too much too often. Stick to one thing you're comfortable with. I think what we've discussed over here is curb usage. That's the key. And track limits. Confirm that with the race directors beforehand. The main thing is if you can use a lot of the track limits, use it on entry. Make the corners as wide as possible for you. Generally, target an early brake, early gas, and really ride some of these curbs. So for example, coming through the fast left over here, we can really jump on this curb, get a boost. Overall, what was your lap time in the last practice session that you did?
The best time I got, I think it was 45.7.
Okay, perfect. So what we've got over here, thanks to Marcos, is a good benchmark. So he's basically showing you the lap at 85 kilos and is 44.2. Kart will definitely make a difference. Just some final thoughts about the sprint race preparation is, work on your luck. I don't know how people do that. Some people have superstitions, they might get some of the fastest karts. That does make a big factor. But my mindset is whatever kart I get, I'm going to do the best. And if I get a slower kart, I'm not going to try to waste too many meters. If I get a fast kart, I'll do the opposite. I'll use all of the track. So slower
Also,
kart.
on that note, actually, because there's no such thing as a bad kart, but a bad driver, because every kart is unique in its own way. Some have a stronger engine, some have not as much top speed, but really good acceleration. Some you can just throw into the corner and it will deal with it. So you got to play to the strengths of your kart. So you don't drive every single kart the same. No, you have to adjust how you drive to your kart, because that's the one factor you can't control, but you control how you drive.
I think that's a great rounding off point there. Johnny, all the best for your race. Please come on track out once again. Let me know how these tips maybe made a difference and if you're able to improve your lap time. Yeah,
Definitely. Thank you so much, Omar.
It's been a pleasure. I can't believe the hour's pretty much flown by over here, and there's so much more footage which we need to go through.
Nothing.
But
there's
not going to be enough time, I'm afraid, today. I'm happy that we were able to go through Fabio's. I'm happy we were able to go through Johnny's. Now, I do want to round off with William's footage. I'm afraid Brannan, Kareem, and Saad, we're going to have to save yours for next week, right? Saad, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Welcome back to Track Help, Saad. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I think you joined last week for a brief moment and then you left, so I didn't get a chance to speak to you, actually.
Yeah, I was kind of busy, but
Are you back in Canada?
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So I guess the footage you wanted to review would have been from K1 as well, right?
Yeah, I have a race in 2 days, and it's like a qualifier for the national championships.
Okay.
So whoever gets first gets to be like a wild card for the national championship.
Okay.
Good luck with that, man. Good luck.
Well, I think you can do well. Saad, since you enrolled for the level 1 program, what you can do is go on the booking option there and just book a private session, so you can get some extended time, and hopefully we can review your track before that race. Yeah, I think that'll be the best option for you. As we did mention, we do 3 submissions in track help. We're gonna have to round off with William. Brandon and Kareem, can you guys join next week's session?
Yeah, I believe so. It's gonna be Eid anyway, so I'm all school. So that's
Brannon,
fine.
you good with next week?
Yeah, of course, not a problem.
I'm afraid, guys, we just did not have time to complete everyone today, but not to worry. We got these sessions weekly, so we can hopefully go for that. William, how are you?
I'm good.
I think you're quite excited to go through this footage, just as I am. Is this one of your personal best lap times at K1?
Yes. I marked it down. Lap. It was at the little time on the bottom. It was set 7:11:10. So
Awesome.
is my best one, which is still about. This is my first time ever on this side of the track. I've been doing just karting for about like 3 weeks, and the first
Okay.
race was on the first track. And so this coming one is on this track. So this is my first time practicing on it, and I'm about like a second off from like the average qualifying time.
Gotcha. So you're saying you've only just started karting?
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing.
For this,
And
my first 3 weeks since I was karting.
how has it been treating you? You've been feeling the adrenaline?
Yeah, definitely.
Getting a taste for it?
Yeah, getting addicted.
Do you go with friends, or you just sort of go on your own?
Kind of on my own, but making friends along the way.
Yeah, that's how it is. What you'll find when you're regular at a track like this one, you'll often bump into some other regular drivers, and then you'll meet the community there. Generally, those guys, once you get to know them, will give you some tips on your driving, especially now that you've got your own footage. It's always good to share that with other drivers there, especially the faster guys, and they're happy to give you some pointers. What we're going to do today is hopefully find a couple of ways that you can get this lap time from a 19.6 hopefully to a low 19. Yeah, I think there's a couple of attempts in there. Well,
yeah, hopefully.
If we can bring up a track map, just give me one moment. Do you have a track map by any chance?
I took it. So they do have a track map on there. Next time I'll take a picture, but I do have like a chalk like rim one. I put it in the replies just like a couple minutes ago.
That's right. Let me bring that up, and I just want to go through this. When there's no clear track map, it's always good to be creative, make your own. And the reason is track maps are very, very important for getting that outside of the kart perspective. Just give me one sec as it downloads.
Yeah, I think especially here because he's on an indoor track and through his onboard, I kind of heard I saw him really fighting the kart for the turn. I think a really good technique for him would be snap steering. I think you're familiar with that.
Yeah, and this is indoor electric kart, so that can work to your advantage. We're gonna hopefully cover that once we get back to his video. Let's just go through this track. I know it's going to be a bit difficult to orient because once I flip the map, it doesn't look the best of angles. I think this is the best one we got. You've drawn your own interpreted line, I see, yeah, on white.
So that's the, I guess, their suggested line.
Yep, their line, racing line.
Yeah,
nice.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we've got a double hairpin, you can say, to start off our lap. It's a right into a left, which brings us on to, it's a very short lap, the middle part of the track already, a triple hairpin. So it's a right into a left, into a right, and then we basically finish off the lap with this chicane section. Now, I know you've only been there a couple of weeks now, but which corners are you doing well? Which corners are you still improving on?
I feel like the last sector, sector 3, I feel like I'm definitely handling, especially watching your videos about the leaning. I'm kind of just flat out, but doing that leaning. Nice. So that's kind of turning the cart. I feel fast there. And then the beginning part of sector 1, I feel like I want to say that I feel like I've gotten a good handle of it. But then it's the triple hairpin where basically I'm just losing revs, especially in the second part. I can feel it where the cart is kind of skidding.
Yeah.
And
Well,
like I'm trying to be either fast, or I feel like if I take it too carefully, I'm just losing a bunch of time. That
7-11 was the best, right?
Oh yeah, 7-11-10 was my best one.
Amazing. Well, this is the end of it. And we've basically started the lap. This is the 19.6. I'm just going to put this in slow motion over here. First couple of corners, then we mentioned it's the fast right into a left. What I like over here is how accurate you were with your apex points, and especially on indoor tracks, that's our track limits. So there's no real curbs. This is painted, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then you've got this solid barrier. Reason why I like doing a lot of indoor training as well is you can practice accuracy. So over here, you've basically gone right up to the track limits, and you've got your turning spot on. If you notice, fixed amount of turning to the left, well for the left. Absolutely no time to be won there. Just talk me through the braking though for the first corner. Is it just after this start finish line?
So
Hi, I want
this one, I've been
if I
talking to a
may.
lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was driving on the All Stars layout, it had the indoor section as well, and it's actually quite similar to this layout. So if you want to like compare, because from last time I did the All Stars, I actually improved quite a lot with your advice. So if you'd like to use that to compare, feel free to, because it's
Sure.
better. Because it's always better to kind of have a visual, you know.
Of course, of course. This is just a different surface, it's different carts. So for now, let's take a look at his footage.
Yeah. Another thing, like I feel like I'm a lot slower, is because I was the only one there, and this was right when they opened, so the floor is really cold. But for my braking point right there, technically, so I was talking to a lot of people who do it, and a lot of them don't brake there, and they just lift and snap the wheel. So that's what I've been doing, and was wondering like if that's actually the fastest way to do it, because the people that like just lift and snap the wheel are about like almost a second faster than me.
Yeah. So the technique from indoor to outdoor is basically because of the weight of the cart. So these are a lot heavier, got heavy batteries on either side. And the moment you try to brake for rotation, you'll find the cart judders, it bounces a lot, it might shake a lot. So essentially, you want to go for the snap steering weights. It's a fixed amount of steering angle, and you're trying to replicate smoothness like that. It's almost like you're driving the cart on rails, right? It's a train track, one fixed motion to the right, one to the left. There's no in between. The reason why you want to avoid on high grip surfaces, how is the grip over here? Is it quite slippery? Is it high grip?
When it's cold, it's pretty slippery. There's like some grip, but it's pretty slippery. But once like a lot of people, like for league races, once there's like a bunch of people like on there like practicing right before the race, it can get pretty grippy.
Yeah.
And time will like increase like
and that's where
like,
and that's where being aggressive will then contribute towards juddering, bouncing. So I'd continue with snap steering. We mentioned earlier that if you combine a lift and a sharp turn in a snap, it will slow your cart down. It'll do some reduction in speed for you. Then that will help you negotiate the right and the left. Basically coming on to the triple hairpin now. And the triple hairpin is so interesting because all of the corners are connected. And the key is to get the first hairpin right in order to get everything else right. So what we're looking for is our breaking point number one. Technically, for the first hairpin, this is where you're carrying the most amount of speed. So where's the current breaking point? Are you using, for example, the yellow line as a reference? What's your thinking?
So this
or even a lift
lap right here, or this lap right here, I was also wondering like best way to do it, because I was kind of like simultaneously doing the like break and turn. So I saw like on one of your videos that like that the slip angle.
Yep.
Like doing something like that, that could, I mean, be beneficial. And so I did it on that one. So that breaking point was like pretty close to like the difference between the orange and black coloring.
Gotcha. Just correct me if I'm wrong. Is the rest of this flat, or is there a lift for this second hairpin?
There's a lift right there, because I've noticed if I go flat out, I kind of like the back kind of like jolts, and it just ruins the last hairpin.
And then this one, this last hairpin, is that flat?
Yeah, that's flat.
Amazing. So basically, we've got 3 stages of entry speed. For the first hairpin, you feel that you need to do a bit of braking because your speed is high. The second hairpin, it's not that much speed, so you can get away with a lift. But then the third hairpin is pretty much flat out, which means the distance between the hairpins are reducing each time. Reason why the first hairpin is so important, we want to get the best possible exit and positioning out of it. I like how you're entering over here, sharp turning, wide entry, and we've got all of the track over here in front of us. What I could encourage you to do is go for even a slightly later turning, so use a bit more, a fraction more of the track, so continue in a straight line slightly longer. So what we can achieve is a slightly later turning and a later apex. It's very difficult on indoor tracks to understand where the early apex is, where the middle apex is, because it's so close to each other. But technically speaking, this is an early apex, this is a middle, and then late is just over here after my yellow arrow. So later turning will help you take a slightly later apex, end up more on the right hand side of the track. So the earlier we go, the easier it is then to end up too far on the left. So just by taking a late apex, we might end up maybe in the middle of the track somewhere over here, maybe slightly more over to the right. Reason we want to do that is so it opens up the angle for the second hairpin. Take a late apex, have a slightly wider entry, and play around with it now. So I know you're currently lifting for this corner. It looks tight enough that, yeah, you probably need to continue lifting. What you could try is maybe taking, as we mentioned, a later apex, so you'll have a slightly wider entry, and see if, I mean, a 50% lift works. Right now, you're lifting completely off the accelerator. Yeah, so play around with it. Rather than lifting 100% off, let's try and lift 50% off. Again, from that wider angle, lay the accelerator down slowly. Once again, I'd encourage you to go for mid, probably even late apex over here. Here, I'd say you've gone relatively mid, which is not bad. And then the distance between this and the next corner is quite close. The thinking behind targeting a late apex or the second hairpin is so on exit, we're going to veer off to the right-hand side of the track where those outside barriers are. And what that does, it allows us to take the shortest path possible, the path with the least meters, and yeah, get to that second apex quicker. At the end of the day, it is flat out. So that's the least of your worries. I would say, you know, as you combine your steering over here, try to put your body weight into it. So lean out over here as you turn the cart, especially in corners you go flat out. So just one more time to recap. I think what you can try next time, into this triple hairpin sequence, keep the entry the same, nice and wide. Just delay the turn in. So when you feel like you want to turn in, just stop yourself, hold yourself for a moment, and then turn it after that. That'll allow you to, you know, brake slightly later. Make sure you're targeting a late apex. So we don't want to hit this painted curve too early. Hit it towards this portion. That'll hopefully allow us to end up on the right-hand side of the track, towards the exit mid to right-hand side, which opens up the angle for this left, which probably means we don't need to lift as much. So add in a 50% lift this time. Again, slightly later turning allows us to go for a later apex, and then keep this final hairpin the same. Flat out, add a bit of leaning in. I think that should help you out. Get a good exit onto this final sector. Just talk me through this. You mentioned you are trying to put the leaning in.
So basically, I'm just
portion.
flat out and just like leaning towards with like giving like minimal steering, and then like that last part, like kind of what you're saying, like you can even kind of see it with the camera. It's kind of like you're getting the bouncing when I'm turning.
Towards the end, right? So
yeah, like right
in slow motion, yeah.
Here you can like out of this corner you can like kind of see the bouncing. And so I'm not sure if I'm losing time there. And it's kind of like you can see my next exit with the bouncing. It's kind of like hindering my next corner, because like the next corner right here is just awful.
It's very frustrating when you get that bounce, that juddering, because it puts you off and you're not able to focus as well. It's not in terms of the ride in the cart, it's not smooth. So generally on layouts like that, I've had it on indoor and outdoor tracks, you almost got to ride the bumps and have it part of the fastest line. Because technically, if we try to avoid it and go slightly wider, we're leaving time to the inside. We're leaving space to the inside apex.
Yeah.
I think here, try to target a later apex. So don't go in too early. That really sets up from the first left-hand portion. So over here, straight line, make it as straight line as possible. I think you're doing this portion fine, coming nice and close to the left. I see how you're cutting across the track slightly. And then what you could do is just delay this turn in. So use the inside barrier as a reference. Maybe open the steering wheel just for a fraction of a second more. So we're leaving a bit of a gap to this inside part. You see how this is like a bit of a straight, but then as the corner curves over there, that's where we want to direct the car back to the right. Another good reference, probably an easier reference, is these grid marks. So as we come off the exit, try to stay within some of these grid marks over here. At least half of the cart should be towards the left. Maybe even slightly more than half. So we can see if that alternative line gives you less bouncing, less juddering, and see how that works out. Any other questions before we wrap up for today?
Just for that first hairpin, with your experience, because I know I've watched in your videos, like one of it was like the slip angle and like you're turning simultaneously while braking and leaning. Or do you think, like, based on, like, I know it's different from watching than actually being in the cart, but like braking and then turning?
Well,
would that
that's a very good
is that
point.
just something like
I'd recommend you to watch grip versus no grip. Have you watched that video?
Yes.
Excellent. Grip versus no grip, I mentioned that you have to be smoother with your braking and more progressive than with your turning. What we are trying to achieve there is the opposite to slip angle. So similar to over here where you're having almost a full lock, that's the trajectory that we want to target. The moment we start being too aggressive and then we start doing neutral steer, I think you'll get a lot of bouncing, a lot of juddering over here. But the key is not to turn too late and not to turn too early. It's a really weird thing to explain, but it's almost like a pocket, right? There's this sweet spot, corner to corner, and that will depend on how you enter it. So the exit of the last corner will then depend how the entry for the first corner will be. Once you can hit that turn in correctly, smooth braking, smooth turning, you should be able to, like you did on the previous lap, take this corner almost to perfection where you're closing the gap to the inside. I think what's happened over here, maybe you got put off by the juddering. You then turned in slightly later. That caused a lot of understeer on the cart. You're on the wider part of the track, and then it just throws you off completely. So, yeah, laps, I would say, is the best way to achieve better consistency. You know, just going round after round after round, finding out where the sweet spot is. You're not going to get it in one session, you won't get it in 2 sessions, but the more you do, the quicker it's going to be to achieve that.
Perfect.
We're going to have to call it a wrap there for today. I think that was an awesome session. I just want to take some comments from Instagram. We got Jemmy. Your explanation is so simple and love it. Thank you so much. Oak, get me in there. Lorenzo as well. He's asking how to get into the academy. Well, let's share our screen. If you go to the KTips website, you could join the academy for free. And this is the place to be. I'm going to admit you in. Every week, there's going to be a post labeled track help. And there's going to be a section for you to put your track map in. So just like Fabio did, like Johnny did, William, Brannon and Kareem, put in a track map, put in some footage, put in a description. We're hopefully going to review 3 drivers at a time every week and get your questions answered. More than that, come and introduce yourself. We've got such a diverse community over here. We just had Dominicus join from, I believe, Czech Republic, that was. And you got a whole host of drivers over here. So if you have any questions, right? Paul's asking about camera recommendations. Theodore's asking about tips for his upcoming endurance race. Darius asking about rib protector. Any karting questions, come and ask and get it answered by some experienced drivers and benefit from our karting assistant and fitness coach. Until next week then, guys, at 6 p.m. GMT on Sunday. I look forward to...
Before you leave, can I have just
Go
one
ahead.
last question?
Absolutely.
Because we didn't get to my footage this track session. Since it's already
Absolutely.
on the community, can you just like watch them over? Because I have one very specific question, and just like on the private messages, because I sent you a message, but he never replied. So can you just like,
send it again?
You
know, Karim, my apologies if I didn't respond. There's more than 1,000 people, so lots of people are sending messages, so it must get lost in there. I do my best to respond to you guys. If you don't get a response, send it again. Yeah. What I'm doing in the week is take a look over your footage, because I don't have time now. I'm gonna have to go. And next week on Sunday, I'm gonna review your footage. I'm gonna review Brandon's footage as well. All right.
All right, great. Because in my endurance race in the 8 hours, we started 35th. We ended up finishing 31st overall, 5th in class.
Okay.
We were running 20th the whole race, but we were pit stop behind everyone, because with the minimum pits, we just kind of we didn't get the strategy right. So we were running really good the whole race. One of our guys, he was putting in like over an hour, 1 or 2 good laps. The rest were like a good 5-6 seconds behind everyone else. So that really screwed us over. So that was the thing. But also in my first stint, I did 1 minute 45.4 as my fastest. But in my last stint, I had the closing stint. I did a 45.8. So I want to know if I was able to get that time, because I was just genuinely a lot faster, but the tires were just, they already had like 7 or 8 hours on them, so they wore down a lot. Versus my first stint, they only had an hour or 2 on them. So does that kind of play into an effect? Because also at the end, like the people leaving, they were all in the 42s, 43s, but in their first stints, they were all in the 40s, 41s.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to take a look through your footage. There's a number of different factors which actually impact lap times during an endurance race, but I'm going to have to look over that. Yep, during the week. Let's do an analysis in the next session. All right.
All right, great.
Until next week on Sunday
week
at 6 p.m. GMT. We'll see you all then. Take care, everyone. Thank you for joining. Good night.
Yeah, Eid Mubarak, because it will be Eid by then. Yeah, bye.